Have you ever felt like two completely opposite versions of yourself were fighting a silent war inside you? A bright, perfect part that wants to be loved and accepted, and another dark, wild part that emerges at the most unexpected moments. If you've experienced this internal battle that seems to tear you apart from within, you're about to understand one of the most profound and transformative psychological processes that Carl Jung ever described. And I assure you that after the next 30 minutes, you'll never see yourself the same way again. Jung said something that forever changed how we understand the human psyche. We all carry within us a shadow, that part of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or hidden to be accepted by the world. But we also carry our light, that idealized image of who we think we should be. And when these two forces collide, when your shadow finally comes face to face with your light, something extraordinary and terrifying happens simultaneously. Your inner world enters chaos, your relationships wobble, your certainties crumble, but also, and this is most important, you begin the most transformative process of your life. Because it's precisely in this confrontation where you're truly born, where you stop being a perfect mask and become a complete, authentic, integrated human being. The first truth you need to understand is that we all live divided without realizing it. From the time you were small, you learned which parts of you were acceptable and which weren't. If you showed anger, they told you that you were bad. If you expressed sadness, they called you weak. If you acted with too much confidence, they accused you of being arrogant. So you did what we all do. You hid those unacceptable parts in what Jung called the shadow. Your shadow isn't something evil or diabolic. It's simply everything you've rejected about yourself to fit in, to be loved, to survive emotionally. Maybe you hid your aggression and became excessively compliant. Perhaps you repressed your sensuality and turned into someone rigid. Or maybe you denied your vulnerability and created a mask of unbreakable strength. Meanwhile, you developed what Jung would call your persona, your conscious light, that polished image of who you think you should be. The perfect child, the exemplary employee, the understanding partner, the always available friend. And for years, decades even, this division works. You live in your light, proud of your perfection, believing you've conquered your inner demons. But Jung was right when he said that everything we reject doesn't disappear. It simply becomes unconscious, and from there governs our lives in ways we cannot see. Your shadow is still there, waiting, accumulating strength, preparing for the moment when you can no longer maintain the farce of perfection. Have you ever suddenly exploded over something insignificant? Heard yourself saying things you never thought you'd say? Felt attractions, impulses, or emotions that completely contradict the image you have of yourself? Those are glimpses of your shadow filtering through the cracks of your perfect persona. Here's an exercise that will make you uncomfortable, but is necessary. Think about the last time you reacted in a way that surprised even you. That explosion of anger, those irrational jealousies, that envy you felt towards someone close, that inappropriate sexual impulse, that cruelty you showed towards someone vulnerable. Don't judge yourself, just observe. That was your shadow telling you, here I am, I'm still part of you, and it's time for you to acknowledge me. Repeat this phrase. I accept that I have parts of myself that I've rejected, and they're asking to be seen. Say it out loud. Feel the discomfort. That discomfort is the first step toward integration. But this is just the beginning, because what comes next is even more challenging. And we'll talk about that in the next point. The confrontation between your shadow and your light doesn't happen by chance. There are specific moments in life where this internal battle becomes inevitable, and understanding why it happens will help you navigate the chaos that's coming. Jung observed that this confrontation is typically triggered by what he called midlife crisis, but in reality, it can occur at any moment where your external world no longer supports your internal image. It could be an unexpected betrayal that reveals your capacity for revenge, a professional failure that exposes your hidden vulnerability, a loss that brings to the surface your repressed desperation, or simply the exhaustion of maintaining a mask that no longer feels authentic. When your perfect persona can no longer contain the pressure of everything you've denied, the war begins. Jung said that the psyche always seeks balance, and when you've lived too long at one extreme, what's been repressed will demand its place. It's like a spring you've been compressing for years. Eventually, the tension becomes unsustainable, and it explodes. And when it explodes, it's not gradual or elegant. It's brutal, unexpected, devastating. Suddenly, you find yourself feeling things that contradict everything you believed about yourself. If you were always the good one, you'll begin to feel malicious impulses. If you were always the strong one, your vulnerability will emerge in ways that terrify you. If you were always the controlled one, your inner chaos will begin seeping out everywhere. And here comes the most confusing part. You're not going crazy or becoming evil. You're becoming complete for the first time in your life. Your shadow isn't emerging to destroy you, but to complete you. But your conscious mind, accustomed to the illusion of control and perfection, interprets this as a mortal threat. Have you noticed how the people who irritate you most often reflect characteristics you deny in yourself? Jung called this projection. The narcissist who infuriates you is showing you your own inflated ego that you've hidden under false humility. The victim who exasperates you is revealing your own tendency towards self-pity that you've disguised as strength. The manipulators you easily detect are exposing your own controlling tendencies that you've rationalized as caring. When your shadow begins to confront your light, these projections start to collapse. You can no longer point at others without recognizing that what you most despise in them also lives in you. It's a humbling and necessary process that Jung described as essential for psychological growth. Try this exercise. Identify 3 people who really bother or irritate you. Write specifically what characteristics of theirs you find intolerable. Now, with total honesty, ask yourself where you live those same characteristics, even if in subtle or justified ways. This exercise can be devastating to your self-image, but it's liberating for your soul. Repeat, I recognize in others what lives denied in myself. When I point outward, 3 fingers point inward. The real work begins when you stop running from these uncomfortable revelations and start consciously integrating them. And this brings us to understand something even deeper about this transformative process. If you want to truly transform your life, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will change your perspective forever. The confrontation between shadow and light produces very specific signals that most people interpret as symptoms of crisis or mental illness, when in reality, they're indicators that your psyche is trying to evolve toward wholeness. Recognizing these signals will allow you to collaborate with the process instead of resisting it, and this will make the difference between conscious transformation and years of unnecessary suffering. The first signal is what Jung would call the eruption of the unconscious. You begin having strange, disturbing dreams, full of symbols you don't understand, but that leave you with a sense of urgency upon waking. Your shadow is communicating through the language of the unconscious, trying to show what your conscious mind refuses to see. It's common to dream of dark pursuers who turn out to be rejected aspects of yourself, or situations where you act in ways completely opposite to your conscious personality. A habitually gentle person might dream they're violent. Someone always controlled might dream they're completely unrestrained. These aren't random nightmares, they're invitations to recognize your wholeness. The second signal is emotional hypersensitivity. Small things that didn't affect you before now completely destabilize you. A casual comment feels like a stab. A strange look is interpreted as total rejection. This isn't fragility, it's your psyche processing decades of repressed emotions that are now surfacing. The third signal, and perhaps the most disconcerting, is what Jung described as enantiodromia, the conversion into the opposite. You begin acting in ways that fundamentally contradict your conscious identity. The controller becomes chaotic, the compliant becomes confrontational, the independent becomes dependent. This isn't inconsistency, it's integration. Your psyche is experimenting with aspects of yourself you've kept dormant. It's like a musician who, after playing only soft melodies for years, suddenly discovers their capacity to create discordant but powerful music. It's disturbing but necessary to access your complete range of human expression. The fourth signal is loss of interest in things that previously defined you. Your career, your hobbies, your usual social relationships suddenly feel empty, false, meaningless. It's not depression, though it may seem like it. It's your authentic being rejecting what no longer resonates with who you're becoming. Jung understood this was a natural part of the individuation process. You must let go of the false identity to make space for the true one. It's like a snake that must shed its old skin to grow. The process is uncomfortable and even painful, but it's evidence of life and growth, not death. The fifth signal is perhaps the most challenging: the sensation of living in multiple realities simultaneously. On one hand, you continue functioning in your external life, fulfilling responsibilities, maintaining relationships. But inside, everything feels unreal, as if you're acting in a theater play where you no longer know your character. This temporary dissociation is normal during the confrontation between shadow and light. Your old identity is dying, while the new one hasn't been completely born yet. You're in what Jung would call the liminal state, the threshold between who you were and who you're becoming. Here's a survival exercise for this period. Every morning, before starting your day, dedicate 5 minutes to asking yourself, what part of me wants to express itself today? Don't judge the answer. If it's your rebellious side, find it a safe expression. If it's your vulnerability, allow yourself a moment of emotional honesty. If it's your personal power, find a way to exercise it constructively. Repeat this mantra: I am dying to be reborn. My discomfort is my evolution. My chaos is my reorganization. Recognizing these signals is crucial because it allows you to consciously collaborate with your transformation instead of resisting it. And when you collaborate, something extraordinary begins to happen in all your relationships and in your perception of the world. During this internal confrontation, something fascinating and disturbing occurs simultaneously in your external world. Your relationships become amplified mirrors of your inner battle, and your perception of reality shifts in ways that can be both liberating and terrifying. Jung observed that when someone enters this integration process, their entire relational field restructures because you're no longer projecting from the same psychological place. The people closest to you will begin reacting in strange and often hostile ways. It's not coincidental. Your transformation forces them to confront their own projected shadows, and this generates unconscious but fierce resistance. If you were always the one who solved everyone's problems, when you begin setting boundaries, others will feel abandoned. If you were always the good one who never complained, when you start expressing your authentic discontent, they'll accuse you of becoming selfish. Jung understood that people prefer to keep others in predictable roles because this allows them to avoid their own growth. When you change, you force your entire circle to question their own masks, and not everyone is prepared for this inner work. Some will choose to distance themselves rather than face what your transformation is showing them about themselves. This can be emotionally devastating, especially when it involves relationships you believed were fundamental in your life. But Jung had a revealing perspective on this. Relationships that cannot survive your authenticity were never really relationships with you, but with the mask you were willing to wear. It was love conditioned on your willingness to remain small, predictable, useful. At the same time, something magical begins to happen. You start attracting people who resonate with your new, authentic frequency. People who aren't afraid of your complexity, who even find it attractive. Relationships where you don't need to hide parts of yourself to be accepted. Jung called this genuine psychological affinity, and it's completely different from superficial connections based on neurotic needs or social convenience. Your perception of reality also undergoes a revolution. Things that seemed important before reveal themselves as trivial distractions. Priorities that guided your life for years suddenly feel like external programming you never questioned. It's as if you'd been seeing the world through glasses with the wrong prescription and suddenly could see clearly. This new perception can be disorienting, because it reveals how much of your previous life was based on illusions, unexamined social expectations, and inherited fears you didn't even know you had. A sensation may arise of having lost years living someone else's life, following scripts you never consciously chose. Jung described this awakening as painful but necessary. It's like leaving a cave where you've lived your entire life and seeing the sun for the first time. The light hurts eyes accustomed to darkness, but once you adapt, you can never again settle for shadows on the wall. In your intimate relationships, the transformation can be especially intense. Your partner may feel they no longer know you, and in a certain sense this is true. The person who fell in love with your mask now must decide whether they can love your wholeness, including the aspects you previously kept hidden. Some partners will flee from this new complexity. Others will discover that your authenticity inspires them to explore their own. Here's a powerful but challenging exercise. For 1 week, in each significant social interaction, silently ask yourself, am I being myself here, or am I acting how I think I should be? Don't immediately change your behavior, just observe. Awareness of when you're in your mask versus when you're being authentic will begin giving you options you didn't know you had before. Repeat. My authenticity is my gift to the world. Those who reject me for being real never truly loved me. Those who embrace me in my wholeness are my true tribe. This recognition of how your inner transformation affects your entire relational world is crucial because it prepares you for the final and most liberating phase of this process. And it's this final phase that determines whether you emerge from this confrontation wiser and more complete, or get stuck in the chaos of transition. Now we arrive at the most crucial moment of this entire confrontation, the birth of what Jung called the integrated self, the complete being that emerges when you finally stop fighting against your own wholeness and instead embrace it consciously. This is the phase where all the chaos, all the confusion, all the pain of your previous identity's disintegration finally reveals itself as the most important birthing process of your life, the birth of who you really are. Jung understood that shadow integration doesn't mean becoming evil or destructive. It means becoming whole. When you consciously integrate your rejected aspects, you don't express them in primitive or harmful ways, but rather access their transformed energy. Your repressed aggression becomes healthy assertiveness. Your denied sexuality transforms into creative vitality. Your hidden vulnerability metamorphoses into authentic compassion. It's like an alchemist who learns to transform base metals into gold. The same elements you once saw as poisonous reveal themselves as the raw materials of your personal power. But this psychological alchemy requires something our culture rarely teaches: the willingness to hold the tension of opposites without collapsing toward either extreme. Jung called this the transcendent function. Instead of being the good one or the bad one, the strong or the weak, the controller or the chaotic, you learn to be fluidly human. You can access your firmness when the situation requires it and your flexibility when appropriate. You can be compassionate without being compliant, powerful without being dominating, vulnerable without being victimized. This psychological flexibility is what distinguishes someone who has integrated their shadow from someone who has simply exchanged one mask for another. You haven't eliminated polarity, you've learned to dance with it consciously. One of the most profound transformations that occurs is in your relationship with personal power. Before integration, your power was fragmented. Part of your strength was trapped in maintaining the mask, part in repressing the shadow, part in pleasing others to avoid rejection. Now, all that dispersed energy unifies under your conscious direction. You become what Jung would call an authentic individual, someone who no longer needs external approval to know who they are. This doesn't make you antisocial or arrogant. On the contrary, it allows you to relate to others from a place of abundance rather than need. You no longer seek to complete yourself through others because you're complete within yourself. This inner completeness reflects in a new quality of presence. People notice it, though they can't explain exactly what has changed. There's a solidity, an inner coherence that's palpable. There's no longer that sense of acting or trying to impress. You simply are, and that quality of being is magnetic. Decisions become clearer because you're no longer internally divided. Before, part of you wanted one thing and another part wanted the opposite, creating paralysis or compromised decisions that satisfied no aspect of your being. Now, from integrated wholeness, choices emerge with a clarity that was previously impossible. Your creativity also expands exponentially. Jung observed that authentic creativity always arises from the tension between opposites. When you've integrated your shadow, you have access to a much broader range of human experience from which to draw inspiration. You're no longer limited to creating from only your luminous side. Now you can create from your complete spectrum of humanity. But perhaps the most profound change is in your relationship with suffering. Before integration, pain was something to avoid at all costs. Now you understand that conscious suffering, the kind that comes from growing and expanding, is different from neurotic suffering that comes from resisting your own nature. You've learned to distinguish between pain that heals and pain that harms. Here's a final exercise that will solidify this integration. Every night for a month before sleeping, make an honest inventory of your day. Identify a moment where you acted from your integrated light, where you were authentically yourself without apologies or masks. Also identify a moment where you fell into old patterns, where you acted from the mask or repressed some authentic aspect of yourself. Don't judge yourself for this latter point. Simply observe. Integration is an ongoing process, not a final state. Repeat every night, I am human enough to be imperfect and wise enough to keep growing. My light and my shadow dance together in the symphony of my authentic existence. When you consciously embrace this dance between your light and your shadow, something extraordinary happens. You stop being a victim of your own psyche and become its conscious creative director. If you've made it this far, it means a deep part of you is ready for this level of self-knowledge and transformation. But knowledge without action is just intellectual entertainment. True transformation requires the courage to look at your own shadow without fleeing, to embrace your own complexity without judging it, to integrate your wholeness without apologizing for it. Jung taught us that the goal of life is not perfection, but completeness. It's not about eliminating your dark aspects, but consciously integrating them. It's not about becoming a saint, but becoming an authentic and complete human being. And this completeness, this integrated wholeness, is what the world desperately needs right now. Because when you stop projecting your shadow onto others, you contribute to healing the collective madness of our time. When you integrate your internal opposites, you stop needing external enemies. When you become whole within yourself, you can relate to others from love instead of need. This is the true psychological revolution that Jung envisioned, a world of complete, integrated individuals who no longer need to project their unrecognized darkness onto others, who can hold the complexity of human experience without collapsing into fanaticism or denial. Are you ready to begin this journey toward your own wholeness? Are you willing to face your shadow not as an enemy, but as the lost part of yourself you've been searching for your entire life? Do you have the courage to be completely human in a world that prefers masks to authenticity? If your answer is yes, if something inside you has been stirred by these words, if you feel it's time to stop running from who you really are, write in the comments, I choose my wholeness. Don't share your personal story. Don't explain your reasons. Just that simple but powerful declaration. I choose my wholeness. Let's see how many brave souls are here, how many people are ready to do the most important work of their lives, the work of becoming completely human. Because at the end of the day, the confrontation between your shadow and your light isn't a battle you must win. It's a dance you must learn. And when you learn that dance, you become the person you were always destined to be, authentic, integrated, complete. If this video has deeply touched you, share it with someone who is also ready for this level of growth. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell because we'll continue exploring the deepest territories of the human psyche, always from the eternal wisdom of Carl Jung. Your transformation doesn't just change you, it changes the world. And the world desperately needs more people willing to be completely human.